would like to introduce our session, Creating a Proposal Task List, Timeline, and Template from a Solicitation, led by Paul Tuttle. Paul began his career in research administration in 2001 as a funding opportunities specialist. Since then, he's managed proposal development at 3 UNC system institutions. Later, at a for-profit grant writing company, he hired and supervised what became a team of 16 grant consultants, serving nearly 500 United States clients in 4 sectors: higher education, K-12, nonprofits, and healthcare providers. He has been the Director of Proposal Development at North Carolina A&T since 2015. Paul holds a master's degree, Master of Arts in English, with a concentration in rhetoric and composition. His persuasive writing background has enabled him to help secure well over $150 million in sponsored program and research awards in the last 2 decades. He has participated in Incura since 2001, SRAI since 2003, and NORDP since 2012. He was the 2018-2019 president of SRAI's North Carolina chapter and is a 2018 through 2022 member of NORDP's board of directors. Paul continues to be an invited presenter at statewide, regional, national, and international conferences. Paul, please take it away.
The first thing I'm going to do today is talk about creating the proposal task list and timeline. That'll be together. And then the second thing I'll do today is talk about creating a proposal narrative template. And I'll just introduce a not so hypothetical situation in which a faculty member, I'm at a land grant institution with a large engineering school, a faculty member might have gone to the National Science Foundation, for example, and, for example, found an upcoming opportunity without a due date, say, and let's say that this person is in, say, oh, I don't know, advanced manufacturing. We do have a group of people on campus who are in advanced manufacturing. And let's say the person comes and has been used to doing, because this is very close to the real scenarios that I get, right? Let's say the person comes and says, I'm not sure how to lay out a timeline, and I'm not sure, because this is all I see in terms of the program description, I'm not sure how to organize my, my proposal narrative. So this is what I've come up with in order to talk to a faculty member about how to create a task list and timeline, and then also how to create a proposal template. So first, the task list and timeline. What I've got are, and I'm going to be flipping back and forth between items, so please bear with me. What I've got are different draft proposal task lists and timelines that I've used before with different faculty members. This is actually from 2015, based on the U.S. Department of Education Minority Science and Engineering Improvement project opportunity. And so as you can see, I've created it as a block matrix and have application elements or action items, reference to the guidance, date due, and person assigned. And as you can see, this is all based on what used to be the PDF application package in grants.gov at that time. And I have information on who in our sponsored programs or Division of Research and Economic Development area will actually help with the project narrative, with filling out these forms, with creating these items. Just as a point of context, we have a large, nearly 40-person central office, and in only 4 out of our 8 colleges we have a research administration departmental office. And so we do a lot of the hands-on work ourselves. The College of Education did not and still does not have a departmental research office. And so we act as both their departmental and as their central, which is why I needed to give this to them. Got some questions in chat, Stephanie?
Just a couple of comments, nothing to worry about.
Okay. All right, so we went through and organized this by form in the application package, and it was all about completing the forms, and it's all in order of what's being requested in the application package. So that's from 2015. Okay, another one that I've got is one for an NSF crest in 2016. Let me share that one. We are an HBCU, historically Black college or university, and as a result, we have HBUs. We have access to HBCU specific funding from NSF and from other agencies. And so this is an example of what I gave at that time, Dr. Ilias and his team, who were at that time leading the CREST on campus. This is a center scale opportunity. And basically have the RFP, link to the RFP, task, the source, the page number in the RFP, or in this case, standard operating procedure for DORED, Division of Research and Economic Development. And as you can see, at this point in time, we had already completed the required letter of intent to NSF and had submitted the required pre-proposal. So we were only talking about the full proposal at this point. The internal NOI means notice of intent, that gives us in DORED a heads up, and that helps us understand that people will actually need our assistance in making this happen. It also assigns a grant administrator in the Office of Sponsored Programs within DORED to lead the team through the entire process. But before that happens, we also get involved in the Office of Research Services and Project Management, which is where I sit as the Director of Proposal Development. So basically, again, you can see all of the elements of the proposal laid out, and here are the page numbers in the RFP that reference the guidance, and then here are the supplementary documents, etc. I have examples I can assist with, and also other team members can assist with, and they're noted here. Draft 1, Draft 2, Draft 3 for the actual project description is noted here, etc. And so you can see that there's a timeline here. One last example. This is one that I gave the faculty members, and they actually altered it for their purposes. I had given them something that was blue, they changed it to orange and put the deadlines on the far right column, and then they put the person responsible in the third column. So they made these changes, and they also identified specific items that they wanted to make sure that they remember to do. So basically I gave them a draft timeline similar to the 2 versions I showed you earlier, and they altered it to make it look like this. So you can see that they have things like finalize the PI list, both at our institution and the partner institutions. They have budget negotiation and finalizing with partners, different things that they know to do because they're a savvy team of people in order to create this NOAA CSC at our MSI. So this was this educational partnership program from 2016. So you can see that all of the pieces, they have laid it out, and they have gone to a more granular level than I did. I just gave them the draft, and these in Calibri, like this and this, are all about completing the form, and they added the specific pieces in Times New Roman so that they would make sure that they had all those pieces. So again, this is what a very savvy team did in terms of developing further a proposal development task list and timeline based on a draft that I gave them. So going back to the not so hypothetical scenario that I talked about earlier, where someone found an advanced manufacturing project description and didn't know what to do with it because it wasn't the normal solicitation. They were a little bit thrown by that. What I have had to do is I've had to actually go to the PAPPG. Let me bring up that to help people understand. Excuse me, I'm not there yet. I do have to go to the PAPPG to help people understand, but for the proposal template. So I'm going to hold that until the second half of the presentation. So for now, what I want to do is take a look at this advanced manufacturing opportunity and glance through it and see what we can talk about as what we need to include within the task list and timeline document. This full proposal accepted anytime throws a lot of people for some reason. They want to have the agency set the timeline, and when they see full proposal accepted anytime, they want to slide and slide and slide back and forth on their own time frame, and I've had to say no. Pick a date. So I'm going to just arbitrarily pick a date of the day after Mother's Day, May 10th. Mother's Day is May 9th, Sunday, May 9th this year. So I'm just going to arbitrarily pick May 10th because it happens to be still within our faculty members' our faculty members' contract time for the 9-month period. It happens to still be within it, and they will then have finished everything that they needed to do before the end of their contract period later on that week. So I'm just going to pick May 10th, and then it says that there is no actual structure. There are some areas that they want to see, but there's no actual structure. Instead, people would need to look at what is in the Nsf Proposal and Award Policies and Procedures Guide and in FastLane to see what needs to be done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up a template and then start from there. So give me just a moment. Sorry about the delay. Okay, I'm going to share this template. So the opportunity name, and by the way, in case you were wondering, yes, FRAC 2021 is going to share these items with you later, including both the template before I filled it out and after I filled it out. So the opportunity name is Advanced Manufacturing, and that's PD 19-088Y. And I'm going to put in here no formal deadline. proposals accepted anytime. PIs and team members' names, it's going to be Dr. X. And this document is based on the PD and the PAPPG. Give me just a moment. And the PD at this bullet point. And the PAPPG. I would say as well as Fastlane, because we are still using Fastlane, and we'll probably be using Fastlane until it completely switches over to research.gov, because our perspective is that it is easiest to go ahead and use what the faculty members already know how to use and what we already know how to use. It is easiest to do that. So right here, submit the internal notice of intent form. They'll be going to a fillable PDF and completing it, downloading it, completing it, filling it out, and submitting it to us via email. They receive a response that says, this is who your Office of Sponsored Programs Grant Administrator is. And by the way, these are some other people who can help you to develop your proposal and develop your budget. So they get assigned and they get put into the queue of work via their submission of that internal notice of intent form. Now here at the end would be submit the proposal, and this would be ideally one day prior to the sponsor deadline. Well, since there's no sponsor deadline, so we're going to make a deadline, and that would be Monday, May 10th at 5 p.m. So our one day prior would be ideally that prior Friday by 5, if possible. We all know that this is probably not realistic, but we're trying to get people to understand not to do things at the last minute. And we've already told people through the new Vice Chancellor for Research that that they cannot receive proposal development and budget development services during the final 3-day window prior to the sponsored deadline. That what they need to be doing at that point is they need to have finished all of the routing and approval in our Ramsey's routing and approval system, which is the same as Cayuse 424. Essentially, is the Chapel Hill and UNC system proprietary version of Cayuse 424, and basically we are trying to make sure that they do all the routing and approvals with that full proposal, all the elements in Ramsey's, and getting all of that done 3 days prior to the sponsor deadline. So here, the next step 4 is submit to Office of Sponsored Programs within Ramsey's. Again, that's our version of Cayuse. Um, 3 business days prior to the sponsor deadline to allow for so that prior Wednesday, that would be May 5th. Okay. Now, as you all know, we're all based on deadlines. So what we need to do really is go ahead and create a time frame And so what I would do is, and I'm just going to take out some of these blocks so I can show you. What I'm going to do is try to create a proposal development task list and timeline. So I'm going to base it on, instead of the forms that need to be filled out, I'm going to base it on their need for a project summary and a project description. So first draft of project, well, let's go down one and say first draft of budget and narrative, because this person was an engineer and usually they start with budgets. The person who is going to be doing that is the PI and team with the assistance of our budget services director in ORS PM, Office of Research Services and Project Management. That would probably be, since we're looking at May and it is now mid January, that will probably be by January 31st, we would want to have a meeting with our director and a first draft created. Okay, first draft of the project narrative, and I would say narrative first. Well, description is the term that that NSF uses. I would say first draft of project description and save the other part, the smaller summary for last. I would say that would be me as the director of proposal development, and or the College of Engineering, pre-award person, staff member. Because in this particular college, yes, they do have a person who is a pre-award staff member. And so probably I would want that by mid-February. And then this would probably be mid-March, the second draft of the project description. And then mid-April, the third draft of the project description. And then probably the project summary, perhaps two drafts, perhaps in late April, and that would be these folks. And then we would want to make sure that all the rest, I'm not going to delete the whole thing. Other forms in Fastlane, other forms and documents in Fastlane. And I'm doing this quickly this would be COE pre-award staff, College of Engineering pre-award staff, and the OSP assigned grants administrator would assist, but not do it for the person. And this would be probably by the end of April. And then it would need to be routed and approved quickly by everyone who needs to sign off on, to everyone who needs to sign off on it, and then submitting the proposal. So as you can see, in just, gosh, just a few minutes, 5 or 10 minutes, you can, using a template or using your prior knowledge of how to do this kind of work, you can actually set up something. And this is this is my draft of a proposal task list and timeline. I'll put right here, draft created during FRAC 2021 session. And I'll share this with FRAC 2021 people in order to send it out to you. Just wanted to say that as you can see, this can be done fairly quickly, especially if you have a template in advance, and you can see that you can build it out much further, but that these essentials show you a timeline, and in discussion with the PI and or the PI and team and or other people within the Division of Research and or the College of Engineering pre-award staff, in discussion with all the moving players, that people can actually adjust this and make it into something that's much more granular, as you saw in the previous example. So any questions at this point? You can put them in chat and Stephanie will be the MC.
No questions till now.
Okay,
Can I ask a question?
go ahead.
This is Jennifer. I was just wondering how frequently you see the PIs go in and assign the names of who's responsible for each thing. I thought that was a brilliant strategy, just to make sure that everything gets done and people are held accountable for what they've agreed to do. That,
but as a rule, is only the savviest teams that have already used something like that in the past. So typically what happens with those is they already have something that they use, but they seize on something like this tool, as something that they can use as almost like a proposal checklist to make sure they've got all the pieces, but also so that they can create the line by line, here's how we're building the pieces. And so that was eye-opening to me as well. But I've noticed that later in other very savvy teams of typically, as a rule, senior faculty members who have been doing this for 15, 20 years, at least, maybe 30.
Okay, and are they the ones that get funded more often?
Well, now it depends. We are actually, I know, those are the words, right? We are actually hiring people because about 3 to 5 years ago, we were told that 60% of our staff and faculty members were eligible to retire within the next 5 years. And so we had to have a hiring plan. And so we've been doing cluster hiring and other kinds of things, and we've been hiring very strong people. So we've had some very strong junior faculty members, assistant professors, who are very savvy, who can almost be treated like a mid-career or senior faculty member and told, this is what you need to do here at North Carolina A&T, go thou and bring in money, and they will do it. Others have to be handheld a little bit, and that's what I'll be showing in the next half of the session.
Thanks, Paul. We've got a couple of additional questions. Christine Spicknell is asking, what about building advisory boards, securing an evaluator, or obtaining quotes?
And with the first two, sometimes we can help them with that. With the last one, usually we advise them to go ahead and make the call to the company. The first one, the building an advisory board, we do know people in the community. And we also act like the matchmaking grandmothers who introduce people to each other. So we do say, you need to get to know these people. So that is very helpful, our role in doing that. But we also introduce people to people they need to know in the community. And then the second one, the second part of that question?
Oh, we have just well, I can read you the same question again. I'm not sure if we addressed all of it. What about building advisory board, securing an evaluator, and obtaining quotes?
And in terms of securing an evaluator, we actually have a list of evaluators within our Office of Research Services and Project Management, people who have been used on different proposals in the past. we have their contact information as well. We can also go to the American Evaluation Association website and click on our state and look for evaluators there. So we've told people to do that as well.
Great, thank you. Melissa Miller is asking, do you use something like a Google Doc that can be edited by multiple parties, or a Word doc that is used by the PI alone after you provide it to them?
Again, it depends. It depends on whether people want to allow everyone to know their personal Gmail account. Some people do not, and some people only want to pass emails back and forth. But as you know, above a certain megabyte level, the attachments won't go through the university email system. So sometimes we have to shift from a Word document that's being passed back and forth. Once the graphics are added, we have to shift to a Google document. And then everyone just has to say, okay, we know. We also have Office 365. So we have a OneDrive that goes along with Office 365 on our campus. We have a OneDrive, and we also have other kinds of data file sharing and data management processes and procedures, some of which are managed by the individual, some of which are managed within the Division of Research and Economic Development, some of which are managed on an ad hoc basis, such as setting up a Google Doc for a particular proposal effort, and some of which are handled in our Bluford library by our research librarian. We actually have a librarian who is assigned to the research function. And so that's been very helpful in the past as well.
Okay, thank you. That's all for now.
Perfect. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. Oh, there's another question, but I do have to move on. So if we can save that question till the end, I'll be happy to do that. Okay, let me look for the an NSF, yes, an NSF proposal template. Okay. All right. So when I say proposal template, I actually mean basically this is just guidance, and this is actually from Texas A&M University. This is just some guidance, but basically headings and what should go underneath those headings. This is not necessarily how I would do it, but this is some good guidance that I've used in explaining to faculty members how to create a structure from just having a project description rather than a solicitation in NSF. So again, this is just a way to show structure. Let me show a second proposal outline. Give me just a moment. And this is from a course for proposal writing for graduate students. And you can see that there are, again, different headings and different pieces to the entire proposal, not just the narrative, the project description, not just the project summary, but basically this acts as a checklist for the entire proposal in some sense, and so that people can see how it would lay out in Fastlane, for example, or in research.gov. But what I've done is I have created some possible structures or typical project narrative outlines so that you can see, and yes, so that you can see how people typically organize the ideas within the narrative. because that's my background. I'm a business and technical writing instructor, and I was going to be a business and technical writing professor before coming into this field. So I'm all about the writing and all about making it make sense and making it be highly structured. So as you can see, there's introduction, project plan, the management of that plan, evaluation, sustainability, dissemination of that plan, intellectual merit and broader impacts, and or something that might be a better possibility for this particular case, the results of prior support from NSF, intellectual merit and broader impacts. This person actually, the advanced manufacturing expert, actually does have prior support from NSF. And so I was able to persuade him that yes, the results of the prior support, if he built on it in order to go into his background and significance for the current project, then yes, he should put it at the front, not at the end, as you might hear or hear. Many times people call the background and significance the background and rationale, so that you actually place the idea in context. Then there's a project plan, goals, objectives, activities, timeline. Sometimes this entire section is one piece, the project implementation and evaluation, or the methodology, or the work plan. And people sometimes say, here are the goals up front, and here's the objectives and activities, and then here are the people who will do it. And they are doing it because they have these qualifications. And then here's how the implementation and evaluation will be managed according to a specific timeline. So these can be shifted and adjusted depending. And then of course, after the project ends, there would be questions of sustainability and dissemination of results. And then many people use intellectual merit and broader impacts as a conclusion. Now, you all know that NSF has gone back and forth on whether you must include intellectual merit section within the project narrative. And as of right now, the most recent PAPPG, only the broader impacts. The intellectual merit was required a year ago, but now not. So I still, as a proposal development person, I still would recommend to the faculty member to include the intellectual merit and the broader impacts here at the end, because basically it acts as a conclusion. It functions as a way to say to the reviewer, this is the reason why you read this far. I think that my project will do these things. Here are my final statements that help me make the case for why you should fund my project, why you should fund my proposal. So I just wanted to share that with you as something that I've created out of seeing hundreds of these NSF proposals and other proposals to other organizations over the course of my 20 years in funding opportunities and proposal development. Now I want to show you some actual project narrative templates that I've created. These are actually for the same person. This is a very, very busy administrator who has very good ideas, but doesn't always know how to structure them. And so she comes to me and she says, I would like for you to help me structure how I'm thinking, because I know that I want to do this, this, and this. And so I listen to her and I tell her I would structure the ideas possibly these ways. Now, you in your role may or may not be able to, or may not be asked to do this, but as a proposal development person and now as a research development person, I'm asked to do this, and this is my role. So basically, this is starting with, of course, her title for her U.S. Department of Education SEED project. It's responding to these priorities. And you all know, if you've worked with U.S. Department of Education, that basically you have to respond to the prompts in order. And you'll see that, and I'm very clear here, we're responding to these things. This is what approach we're taking, and this is how it dovetails with the requirements, and I quote from the SEED guidelines here. So as you can see here in green, 35 points, each heading in most U.S. Department of Education proposals, each heading has a point score that add up to 100 by the end. And then you get extra credit, because this is all based on a pedagogical, teaching-oriented kind of way of thinking. You get extra credit by answering certain other kinds of competitive preference priorities. So when someone asks me, do you want to go for the competitive preference priorities, I always say yes. We always want to attempt the extra credit, because it might be that the cutoff score is 106 instead of 100. And if you hadn't attempted the extra credit, then you wouldn't be up there at the 106 threshold. So basically, I've copied the headings, and according to the requirements, you have to actually answer all the sub-factors within each larger heading. So I've had, here's the sub-factor, and please insert your response to the sub-factor. And there's a maximum of 40 pages, so I've already set it up so she knows when she goes over 40 that it's not good. I've already created it with the correct margins and the correct font, so that all she has to do is insert her response. All she has to do is type, and if she doesn't create words well by typing, then she can speak into her smartphone's dictation function and play it back and type that up. A lot of people come to language first. Well, we all come to language first by speaking it, second by writing it, third by typing it. So if the typing doesn't work very well, try writing in longhand, or try speaking to another person who takes notes, or again, speaking into your smartphone in order to use the dictation function. So as you can see here, all these sub-factors are listed. And I noted also that there's a pre-recorded webinar. The goals and objectives should be SMART, some hints and tips here and there to make sure that she understood some of the nuances of this. The Federal Register notice provides a link to technical assistance resources for project evaluation. So that was right here, relevant to the project evaluation section, etc., and so on and so forth. So blue was insert, and green was remember these things, here's additional information. And so in just 4 pages, it took me almost 3 hours to create this. But in basically 4 pages, I've set her up so that she can go ahead and respond to the required headings in the required order, and just use this as her proposal template. And she did. Any questions that I need to look at, Stephanie, or listen to?
No questions right now, Paul.
Okay. All right, let me stop that and let me look at one more. And this is actually an NSF GRK for the same person. She had not responded to NSF opportunities before, so I had to provide a lot more information about how NSF does it versus her preferred agency, U.S. Department of Education. So that's why I have the actual headings that must be included, not necessarily in this order, but I used the order that was in the RFP, and then gave her some additional information about the way NSF does business in blue here, and gave her some information that she should know, and then gave her a lot of suggestions, and including giving her suggestions as to how much of the project description she should use on each section, how she should allocate her pages. And here's the NSF's user-friendly handbook for project evaluation, and a link to that. So several things I built in for her so that she would have information there, and so that she would be able to understand. And here's some guidance on NSF how it does business and what it means by broader impacts and intellectual merit, for example, and some other kinds of things. And all she needs to do is go in and use this, and she did. And she was very, very close to getting the funding. She was within reach. So she's going to try again the next time it's available. But this was her first time doing an NSF proposal. Previously, she had only done U.S. Department of Education proposals, which is why I gave her all this information. Now, let's go back to our engineer, who is an expert in advanced manufacturing, okay? So if you remember, this is the actual opportunity, if you remember. And if you remember, it points you to the PAP guide, the PAPPG, right? And the PAP guide, give me just a moment to get to the location for it. The PAP guide only has a very little description of the content. And let me increase the size so that you all will be able to see it when I share the screen. So, project description should provide a clear statement of the work to be undertaken, blah, blah, blah. Objectives, significance, relationship of this work to the present state of knowledge in the field, blah, blah, blah. Work in progress by PI under other support, should outline the general plan of work, etc. You all can read this, okay? This is all of the advice or guidance that NSF gives, because it's almost like a club. You need to understand what the club is before you can gain entree to it, and you have to understand it by other people giving you guidance as to what they've experienced. So what I've used is what I've used in the past is let me stop sharing this one. What I've used in the past is actually this typical NSF narrative structure. And I've used this as the structure for a person like the advanced manufacturing expert who comes to me and says, how do I structure my project? So if I were to take this right here, and I were to go to the DRK through 12 template, and I'm going to rename it as the advanced manufacturing template. Created during FRAC 2021 session. Okay. And then if I'm going to say, these are your headings. Give me just one moment. Okay. Now, I'm going to give something like this, well, better formatted, to my advanced manufacturing expert. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to probably combine this into a work plan or maybe a project plan. Goals, objectives, activities, put the timeline here at the end, and probably bring up personnel roles and management of project implementation and evaluation, and then the timeline for the whole shebang. And then after the project ends, and intellectual merit and broader impacts. So for my taste, this would be, or I would do background and rationale here. I would do the problem, setting and the problem, rationale for the solution, and make sure that that this person understood, and I'm saving it so that I can share it later. Make sure this person understood in a conversation, and probably writing a good bit more. I'm running out of time, which is why I'm not writing on this more. But I would go ahead and say, what are those prior projects that you have finished or are currently doing? How do they feed into this particular response to this particular advanced manufacturing PD project description, this opportunity? And how are you going to place yourself in the setting of what other people are doing in this area? What is the problem? What's your rationale for your solution? And then what is your plan going to be? Making sure those objectives are SMART. Making sure that the activities are very clear. Sometimes people actually put personnel roles with the activities. This person will be doing this, this person will be doing that due to qualification X or Y or Z. And so that could be blended. And then the project implementation and evaluation, especially if it's a team, how would it be managed? Who would report to whom? Who would have final say? Or if there were any conflicts or differences of opinion, et cetera, where would the evaluation function come from? Would it come from an advisory board? Would it be done internally? Would it be done by a person at the university but outside of that particular department? Or would it be truly an external evaluator? And then some timeline here at the end, compressing all of that in the project plan into this is what I plan to do, when and how, why, typically either by month or by quarter, by years. And then sustainability, dissemination of results, and intellectual merit, broader impacts, making sure that the intellectual merit and broader impacts say much the same thing, whether telescoped out or compressed, but to say much the same thing as they would in the project summary. So this is probably what I would give. In fact, I gave this PI something similar to this, but with a good bit more writing around it, and also a meeting to explain, so that the person would say, okay, now I have some structure. Now I can write this project narrative. And are there any questions? It's 11:24, so I've been sort of watching the clock. Any questions?
I'm afraid to ask a question because I don't want to cut you off from anything else you want to. You have my rapt attention.
Well, I'm happy for you to ask a question though, Jennifer, if you have one.
We do have one question in the chat from Melissa Miller.
Okay.
How do you gauge how much or how little to give a PI?
Oh, wow. I need to say something at this point about what my very first boss told me. She had told me to send out funding opportunities. This was in 2001. And she had told me to actually photocopy them and put them in envelopes and send them out through the campus mail in 2001. And I said, I'm sure that we can do this by email. So I set up distribution lists and sent people things that I thought were useful. Well, she came into my room, said, Paul, you cannot sit behind your computer screen and just send things out and click send all the time on your computer. That is not your job. You have to go out and meet these folks. You have to go to their area, talk to them, visit their labs. Research administration is a contact sport. That's what she said to me. Research administration is a contact sport. So I think the answer, Melissa, is that you get to know people during your interactions with people. You get to know them and you express who you are and how you are as a professional. And that meshes to an extent where you will soon learn that Professor X is going to need a lot of hand-holding, while Professor Y is going to need a piece of paper or a URL. And they're going to just, you're just going to send that information to them. And here's a structure, or here's a potential structure. And all you might need to do is send what I have up on screen. And that's all they need. And they can take it and run with it. But somebody else might need some additional hand-holding. And you saw how detailed that was in the example that I showed you. And I had multiple meetings with that person because it was her first experience with NSF, and she didn't understand quite how NSF worked as opposed to her preferred agency, U.S. Department of Education. So there was a lot more hand-holding with her than there was with this advanced manufacturing person, because he had done NSF before and he had seen things. He had even been a reviewer on NSF review panels. So he understood structure, good, useful structure of proposals and how it can help make a proposal be more competitive in the eyes of the reviewers. So I think the answer is getting to know people and letting them get to know you, and then figuring out from there what they likely need. And sometimes it needs to be blunt. Do you need this? I have this. Do you need it? Would it help you? Not said in any condescending way, of course, not said it in any kind of any way that might inadvertently make them feel like a fool, but to say, I do have this. Do you think it might help? And then sometimes they say, oh, absolutely. And the most unexpected people have said, oh, yes, absolutely. Some senior people have said, oh, yes, I would love to have a task list and timeline template. Oh, yes, I would love to have a structure for an NSF proposal. I would love to see what you've come up with, Paul. And so, yeah, quite often it's been very helpful. Other questions?
We have any other questions?
I've been seeing a lot of things coming in chat.
There's been a suggestion that our next FRAC t-shirt have research administration as a contact sport as the logo on there.
And that would be due to Dr. Oh Lord, don't tell me that I've just, her name has flown my mind. Dr. Ernestine Solomons Easter, who is now at NSF. She was at the National Academies after North Carolina A&T. After serving as a Vice Chancellor for Research at North Carolina A&T, she went to the National Academies, and now she's at NSF. Ernestine Solomons Easter. Research administration is the contact sport. And that is an amazing statement, and it got me completely out of my way of thinking of, being an introvert and hiding behind my screen. And instead, I've learned that regardless of what I am as an introvert, I have to express an extroverted set of characteristics from time to time, and I absolutely have to go and talk with people and see their labs and get interested in their work. And they have repaid in hundreds of ways by following my advice, by listening to what the Division of Research and Economic Development wanted them to do or needed them to do. They've responded really, really well to that.
Okay, if there are no other questions, I believe that concludes our session on creating a proposal task list, timeline, and template from a solicitation. Thank you, Paul. It's a wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone who participated. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to send them on to our presenter. And just so you know, our next session with Betty Ann Morgan will begin at 1 p.m. That session is contracts, breaking it out, breaking it down. In between sessions, please feel free to join our breakout rooms to meet up with your colleagues and network. Thank you again, and have a wonderful FRAC 2021.
Thank you all.
Thank you.